Hey everybody, how's it going? Brbteabreak here, today with another World of Warcraft Battle for Azeroth video. Today we are checking out the Retribution Paladin. If you want to see other class changes in Battle for Azeroth, check out my channel where I have most of the classes covered and I'm adding a new one every single day. So the Retribution Paladin gets the most improved award in my opinion between Battle for Azeroth and Legion. What's happened? Mainly the talents have got a massive rework and actually have become interesting and choices for all situations, and unlike some other specs, the talents don't seem like it'd be something like, oh, this is always better. It will actually be dependent on what you need to do in a set fight, which is very, very cool. At the same time, the traits being gone have not nerfed the class too heavily and still plays very similar to the live version. So, what has changed though? We'll go over basic abilities, the traits, and then the talents. So, abilities. The biggest two straight away are Crusader Strike, now has a high cooldown. It's 6 seconds here, where on live it's 4.5. This is a massive nerf to your holy power generation. But Judgment now generates holy power, so it counteracts it a little bit there. You're generating about the same holy power realistically because this fills in those gaps, but it's a bit more weird flowing, I guess you could say, because the Judgment happens much slower than the Crusader Strike does. Also, Judgment has been reworked. Judgment on live applies a debuff, which is scaling off your mastery, makes it so you do more damage with your abilities during that Judgment window. Now, you just do more damage with your holy power spenders all the time. Or holy damage abilities, which is things like your Templar's Verdict, melee spenders, Divine Storm, Judgment, Consecration, stuff like that, if you spec into it. Spoilers. Now, so that's pretty cool. You still have that mastery style thing though, where when you use a Judgment, the target will get a debuff, and the next holy ability you do on it, Holy Power Spender, it will do bonus damage. So you still have that gameplay there of doing more damage after a Judgment, but it's not something you really play around anymore because Judgment's such a high cooldown anyway, you're probably going to hit a spender between that, so yeah, not too shabby. The biggest quote-unquote nerf for the spec, I would say, would be Judgment. Avenging Wrath. Avenging Wrath on live is 35% increased damage, where now it's 20% increased damage and 20% crit. Which is kind of weird. The crit is more of a holy pally kind of thing, because crit for a Red Paladin doesn't change anything. You don't get any cool perks, you don't get any cool bonuses like, say, an Elemental Shaman would or a Fire Mage would. You just do more damage. So this means you have more crits, which is kind of fun, but it's kind of the same but kind of different at the same time. So it's a nerf, but a buff in a different way. Last but not least, your Retribution has been nerfed also. On live it lasts for 20 seconds, now it lasts for 10 seconds. That's fine, it's an awkward ability anyway. It was only useful in progression, which is obviously important, but a class should be balanced around Retribution buff uptime, so probably a good thing in the long term. Now, let's talk about your artifact weapon being gone. Obviously that means you lost Wake of Ashes, which was a massive AoE burst ability, had a stun also on demons and undead, and generated tons of holy power. So you lost a bit of holy power generation and a bit of burst, I guess, but it's not too big of a deal. It wasn't critical to the class working, I'd argue. It just made you have a bit better like Avenging Wrath, a bit of better like Crusade windows. Because really, outside of that, it doesn't do much damage anyway, and the Holy Power generation just means an extra Templar's Verdict here and there. So the class still plays perfectly fine without the artifact ability. One thing you have lost, which is pretty massive I think, is Wrath of the Ashbringer. That makes your Avenging Wrath last longer, and it's a minimum of 8 seconds if you have 4 traits. And let's say the average player has 5 or 6 traits into that, because it is very popular, you're missing at least 10 seconds of your Avenging Wrath. So it goes from 20 here to being 30 on the live servers at least. So that's pretty massive in my opinion. It's a pretty big blow, but at the end of the day, it's probably better. It depends how you want to play. It means the class to be less bursty, which generally means it's better for more fight situations, which I think Red has gone for overall, instead of being this niche burst class and no damage outside of burst. So I think it's a positive. If you don't think it's a positive for the burst reasons, obviously, you know, might not be as good. Maybe look at the Fury Warrior or something instead. But you still have that burst, but now it's a bit weaker. You've also lost a thing which I think is brilliant that they've actually removed it, Range Divine Storms. Because Range Divine Storm makes no sense in my opinion after having the abilities since Wrath of the Lich King, or BC pre-patch really. Having Range Divine Storms was always awkward in my opinion. Didn't really fit the character. Why could you can't see projectiles 20 yards forward? No idea. Now it's back to the good old Divine Storm, does damage around you. It means your AoE, it's still the same, but some fights where you'd have targets separated, for example, something like Coven, you could actually hit multiple targets with Divine Storm. Also Mythic Plus, although you see a lot of times Red Paladins wouldn't even be in melee range and they just spam Divine Storm like range. So that utility is now gone, which I think is fine. You already have Blade of Justice and Judgment for range abilities, so you don't need range options really as a Red Paladin anyway. You can heal while you're at range also. You have things like Bubble if you really want to stay in melee range, so yeah, not that big of a deal in my opinion. And the rest of the traits are really minor. Things like lower Bop cooldown by 10%, Forbearance being a 10-second shorter debuff, not that big of a deal. One big one, I guess, which isn't really that big, is Unbreakable Will, which lets you get out of CCs automatically when you get stunned. So that's gone, I guess. Very few situations where it actually mattered in PvP, in PvE and raids, but it did matter sometimes, and it's now gone. You know, you should get stunned if you get stunned. You know, that's how boss fights work. Now, let's go through the talents. As I said, guys, I've been hyping this up. This is where the class really shines. Every row is very distinct, and it wants to be single target, or AoE, or utility, but it gives you multiple options at doing all those things. And there's one for the lazy man, one for burst generally, and one for sustain, but maybe there's a proc based one, maybe there's a more consistent based one. It's really, really great, the system overall. So, level 15, you'll see, the names are all the same as live, but don't panic guys, they are different. So, Zeal, the first one right here, Zeal on the live server replaces your Crusader Strike, and makes it so your Zeals cleave after that, where now, it's totally reworked. Now, Zeal gives you a buff when you use Judgment, and gives you increased attack speed on your next 3 auto attacks, earns attack steal bonus holy damage. So here you go. We now have, we didn't spec into it. We'll spec into it now actually. So 1 second here, boys, look at that. We're doing it live. So, here comes Judgment. Next 3 auto attacks do extra damage, as you can see the 158 there, and attack slightly faster. So yeah, that's very much a passive automatic talent, the Lazy Man talent. Next we have Righteous Verdict. Righteous Verdict is similar to Final Verdict, except it's purely single target now, no Divine Storm part there. And it's actually a buff you receive on your character, and lasts for 6 seconds. So you actually have to play around this now. So you don't want to just spam your, I lost my holy power. You just don't want to spam your Templar's Verdict as soon as you get 3. You kind of want to play around this window. You can see the buff is here. I'm lagging like crazy right now. But you want to try and delay it as much as possible in a way, because you don't want to be using your Templar Verdict too early, because then you won't be able to keep the buff running. You see here, I'm actually probably going to drop it, possibly. No, we're good. But yeah, you actually got to sustain this a little bit here. It could mean it could be some haste breakpoint windows. It could also mean you might drop it when you get out of combat a little bit there, but I think it's pretty neat, and it's more of a maintenance talent that you actually have to play around, and you just mash your buttons when the Holy Spender is ready, which is really good in my opinion. And last but certainly not least, Execution Sentence has been massively reworked. On the live server, it just does damage after 7 seconds, 20-second cooldown, still the holy power cost there. But now it's a 30-second cooldown, does damage instantly, but applies a debuff that makes you do 20% more damage for 12 seconds. Now it's only on a single target, but it's a damage buff. It's really good. The damage is like equal also to something like Templar's Verdict. So if you pick this, you can actually add this to your Avenging Wrath windows, which is very interesting, I think. So if we generate some holy power here, gotta put it in my bars, where is it? Shift 5, there it is. So for example, if we do something like this, it's actually not terrible, and actually works as a part of our rotation. So a lot of classes are complaining right now that you have, oh, I've got all these GCDs on my, cooldown abilities. This is a great way of doing it, in my opinion. You've added, in a way, a buff to your character, 20% more damage for 12 seconds. But it does damage and it feels impactful still. This is how they need to do it. It did it with Fury Warriors, with, what's it called? With Bloodbath, and they've done it here with the Red Paladin with Execution Sentence. Like, look at that. It feels satisfactory. You're doing damage with it also, but you're still gaining a damage buff overall. Very cool. So yeah, a great first line here. Like a burst single target talent, maintenance single target talent, and then an AFK single target talent. So yeah, great row right there. Level 30. Now these are all holy power generators, which is cool. Again, another way to play the class differently. Fires of Justice is the same as Live, but now that the Crusader Strike has a higher cooldown, it's a lower percentage of the overall cooldown of the ability, but in a way it's more important because right now you're not GCD locked, so having a lower cooldown on it is very nice. Blade of Wrath is the same also. Gives you the auto attacks. Sorry, auto attacks have a chance to reset your Blade of Justice there. So again, you have a consistent way of generating holy power, a proc-based way, or RNG-based way of generating holy power, and then the big baby, Hammer of Wrath. Hammer of Wrath is a 30-yard range ability, generates 1 holy power, and can be used when the target is below 20% life, or Avenging Wrath. So this gives you holy power when you most need it, when the boss is dying to execute phase, or when you're using Avenging Wrath, which is amazing. It does pretty good damage, especially for an instant cast generator. It's not as good as Judgment, but it's better than a Crusader Strike, not as good as Blade of Justice. So it's good, but it's range also, remember that. And at the end of a fight, you just want to throw these around. It looks cool also. We'll press Avenging Wrath here, we'll show you. It's the old school Avenging Wrath. Like, come on. Cooldown's low too. What else could you want? Brilliant. Like, it really is great. I don't know. It's so basic, really, but I really do love having this back. Why was it gone? We'll never know. But yeah, so you have the burst one here, and execute. You have the RNG based one, and the consistent one. So one for every situation, really. You might say, oh, but Blade of Wrath has the best, holy power per minute. But you don't always want holy power per minute. You sometimes need burst. This would be good for, say, Kingara, for example. Or even on a fight like Argus, to an extent, when you have to burst a boss down, say you have to burst down a module, stuff like that. These are great options. If you don't want RNG, Fires of Justice is great also. Sometimes, the RNG option is not for people, and they will take a 1% decrease for more consistent damage. So yeah, very, very cool. Now, level 45 is exactly the same. Fist of Justice is slightly worse. On Live is 2.5 second per holy power, and now it's 2. Meh, whatever, I don't really care there. Level 16, and this is your AoE line right here. But they all do AoE differently again. So, firstly we have Consecration, the big boy. Generates 1 holy power, don't know why it says 0 there, it's bugged out. Generates 1 holy power as you can see. It has a 20-second cooldown and lasts for 6 seconds. Where on Live, it doesn't generate holy power, lasts for 12-second cooldown. So it's not a maintenance buff, but you do want to press this on cooldown. The damage number here is wrong, do not panic. It's not 6,500 damage over 6 seconds, but it is good damage nonetheless, as you can see. It's pretty good damage. AoE, nothing to really complain about there. Consistent holy power also, which I think is a major thing there. Next, we have Wake of Ashes. So your artifact ability, exactly the same as a live server, does AoE damage, does the stun on demon and undead, and generates 5 holy power. Now, it does have a higher cooldown. On Live, it's 30 seconds. Now it's 45. But this is, again, a burst AoE talent, consistent AoE talent, burst holy power, consistent holy power. So this even lets you do burst AoE through Divine Storm. So it's really, really good. Not going to show it off because I want to show off Divine Judgment now, because I don't want the cooldown. So Divine Judgment. Every enemy hit by your holy power spenders increase the damage over your next judgment by 15%, stacking up to 15 times. So, this is a weird one. It's probably the most abstract one out there because it works with single target abilities, like you can see here Templar's Verdict. But it is empowered the best through AoE abilities like Divine Storm. But what it does is it makes your single target ability do more damage. So it's a trade-off. It's much more like a Mythic Plus style talent where maybe even a boss where you have ad spawn randomly, you don't need to kill them instantly, where you just use this and you don't really care what happens. And you Judgment and you do tons of damage. You're trying to build up some stacks here. Might be a bit slow, I might keep pressing Judgment by accident. But you'll see eventually, we'll hit really hard here. We're on 6 stacks right now. Come on, don't drop stacks, boys. Okay. We'll get to 10 at least. Should we go all the way? Let's go all the way. I've already gone this far. We're going to go all the way. Okay. And you'll see, if we can get a crit... Actually, oh, I still have Execution Sentence. We'll use that. And that'd be really juicy. Okay, here we go. So we're going to Avenging Wrath here. Execution Sentence. Come on, Judgment crit, please! Oh, 8,300 damage there, guys. No crit. It would have been 16,000 damage if it crit. That's a lot, guys. That's a lot for the alpha, by the way, the beta. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. Now you got to think, oh, look how slow I took to build up. If you're doing a dungeon and you're hitting 6 mobs at a time, if you spec in the stuff that can give you some good holy power generation, like Avenging Wrath, because you will have, you know, maybe Avenging Wrath running, Hammer of Wrath, sorry, you can get some pretty sick procs here, and then go really crazy, and your Judgment has that direct damage when you need it on target still. So, this is the most abstract one out of the line, in a way, because these were just pure AoE, different ways, burst, consistent, and this is an ability that's improved by AoE, and increases your damage overall. So yeah, a bit different, but it still works in my opinion. Might be the best one in the end, but even then, like, these generate holy power, so these are still good single target. I'm pretty sure you will use Consecration and Wake of Ashes, even in single target situations, as an AoE talent. Because they generate holy power, and you're currently not GCD locked, so yeah. Anyway, 75. Cavalier and Eye for an Eye are the same. Eye for an Eye causes a GCD. Not sure if it does on the live servers, but it causes one now. Unbreakable Spirit, sorry, is a new one. Reduce the cooldown of your Divine Shield, Shield of Vengeance, and Lay of Hands. So all your defensive abilities get a 30% cooldown reduction, which is really good. Especially for Shield of Vengeance, because it's like a pseudo damage cooldown. I wouldn't say it is, but it kind of is. But having lower Lay of Hands and Bubble might be really good in some fights. A minute and a half cooldown reduction is pretty massive. Okay, now let's check out the level 90 stuff. Which is weird because level 90 can be really cool big upgrades, but it's pure utility, which is kind of weird. I think I should move them around. Doesn't really matter, but I think they should. Anyway, level 90, Selfless Healer. This is a brand new one. Your Judgment gives you a buff, which reduces the cast time of your next Flash of Light by 33%, and increase the healing it does to others by 10%, stacking up to 3 times. So what happens here is that you hit a mob, and you have this buff permanently pretty much when you use Judgment on cooldown, and you get a very fast Flash of Light. Now it's kind of similar to the Boomkin boots, which give you instant regrowth when you just use your Wrath and your Lunar Strike, except this one causes the GCD, and because you're auto attack based class, you'll see here, we'll auto attack, and we'll get very close to it finishing, so we'll auto attack here, we'll cast, and see we have a massive auto attack delay between that. That wasn't the auto attack normal window. What happens is when you cast spells as a melee class, a lot of spells do this anyway, it resets your auto attack timer back to 0. So by default, the auto attack timer for us is 3.1 seconds. And so we get to, 2.5 seconds, press the button, we go back to 0 seconds and have to go back to 3.1 to get another auto attack. At least that's what I'm pretty sure how it works. That's how it works for shamans. That's how it works for a lot of classes with actual physical cast abilities. So yeah, kind of sucks. It means you have something to do though. It can be good for leveling. It can be good in raids, because really this buff will never drop off you. So if you're out of melee range for a second, you can cast a heal on yourself. They want you to do it on other people though, with that 30% increased healing, but really, it heals with such a small amount anyway, you probably just do it on yourself and not really care. Justicar's Vengeance is the same, except now the damage portion bonus when you stun something is lower. On live, it's 100% additional, 100% additional damage and healing, where now it's only 50% chance. which is okay. What they can do, and I'm not too sure if they've done because numbers are skewed obviously, they might have increased the base value because obviously you can't stun bosses if you didn't know. So this would mean it does more healing overall, but slightly less healing if you can stun something. So the trade-off there possibly, don't know what the scaling is yet guys, but that's what it sounds like so far. And then Word of Glory got a rework also. This is pretty interesting. So Word of Glory on the live server hits 5 targets within 15 yards, but I'm pretty sure it's not a smart heal, it's just the 5 nearest targets. Where Word of Glory now heals the 3 most injured friendly targets within 30 yards. So it's a much bigger radius and heals less people, but from what I can tell, this heal is pretty massive. It's a third of somebody's life. So here we go. We'll cast it. Boom. 30-yard range. Not too bad. Heal the guy for 5k, remember. And I have 15,000 life right now. He has probably 15,000 life also. So yeah, like, it's bloody good, guys. It's a bloody good heal. The only problem is that it costs you holy power. Oh, wrong button. So that's a bit of a bummer, but it's so powerful that this could be useful sometimes. One thing that sucks is that there's no damage portion. If it was something like Divine Storm where you hit somebody and you gotta heal, you wouldn't feel as bad. Obviously it'd suck, but it sucks right now using a whole GCD on a pure healing ability. Now if this was off GCD, it'd be weird also. I don't know. You're not GCD locked yet, so it doesn't matter too much, but when you're GCD locked, not only are you wasting 3 holy power, you're wasting, a generator. You're missing a Judgment, you're missing a Crusader Strike, which could mean more holy power overall. So, yeah, but it's very, very powerful right now. Now, level 100. Divine Purpose is the same. Crusade is different. So, Crusade on the live server stacks up to 15 times, which is much higher than 10, if you didn't know. Now it stacks 10 times. Still the same amount of haste, still the same amount of damage increase. But one thing interesting here is that Crusade lasts 25 seconds, where Avenging Wrath lasts 20. So picking Crusade, not only will you do more damage within that window, your window is actually longer also. But the thing to remember now is that, okay, you get 30% damage, but you're losing the crit to gain haste. And even if haste is a better stat than crit, it means it's not as good as it currently is on a live server where you gain damage and haste. Because you gain damage and haste on the live server, where now you're gaining damage and you're trading crit for haste. But again, you have to ramp this up also. So depending on the haste, if you don't do enough generation at the beginning there, you have to pick things like Wake of Ashes maybe too to really get value out of this. Because without Wake of Ashes, your holy power generation at the start of a fight or the burst is much lower, and Crusade is all about getting to max stacks instantly. So this is severely nerfed in my opinion. It's a lot weaker. Yeah, it forces you to take forces you to take Wake of Ashes, and to an extent, things like I guess all these kind of work, but you probably want to go Blade of Wrath for the lucky proc. Hammer of Wrath probably better too. Who knows? But it is definitely an interesting one there. Anyway, let's move on to a new interesting talent. I feel like I'm playing a Windwalker Monk from Draenor here. So, Inquisition. 1 to 3 holy power. Sounds like Target Eye Brew a little bit. Consume up 3 holy power. Increase your damage done and haste. So, actually increases your haste here by 8%. Last 15 seconds per holy power consumed. This being 45 seconds. 3 holy power only. It's crazy. Over a fight is maybe 7 minutes long, so you don't waste that much holy power using this, and you get 8% more haste and 8% more damage. It's such a great little talent here. It's really good. But this whole line is good in a way. This is very much a consistent maintenance talent which makes you do more damage. 8% more damage to be exact. With Divine Purpose, depending on tuning, could be very close to this, but this is purely RNG. Maybe more of a PvP style talent. Then Crusade is all about the burst. So you have many ways, and you can see combinations happening already, which is good and bad. I would like there to be options, but if, like as I said, Wake of Ashes and Crusade is obviously has to be together. And because of how Crusade works and the damage you're dealing, you will want something like Execution Sentence. So you're kind of forcing yourself in certain situations where Inquisition, you're like, okay, I could pick this one, but I don't have to. Is it something I have to burst down? No? Okay, I can pick this one if I want to. Where Crusade, you're very much picking, I'm going to burst everything, all the burst talents. So, yeah. Maybe just these two are dated. I think Divine Purpose is great. Crusade might be a bit just dated, really. I don't know what you can do to make this more interesting without forcing you through certain talents, but maybe that's good also. Having a force build for single target sometimes for burst is necessary, and I guess at the end of the day, it's all a math problem, you know. So, yeah. So, what do I think overall the Retribution Paladin? I really bloody like it. It's definitely, as I said, my most improved class by far. It goes from me never wanting to play the spec to actually going, hey, I could play this in a raid. I really think I could. The one problem I have with the spec right now is that there is very little RNG outside of talents, which is a concern to me. Because most likely, as I said, I do mythic raiding, and if something like, we go, okay guys, Fires of Justice is best when you need consistent holy power, and Hammer of Wrath is the best burst one. Okay, these are your two options. If I never pick Blade of Wrath, well, I'm missing a proc right here, and my only other proc option is Divine Purpose, and that most likely, realistically, isn't going to be the best one. Most likely going to be Inquisition or Crusade. So it means this spec, you could have a robot played, is how I feel a little bit. Because even though it is a priority order, nothing here changes. The cooldowns always have the same cooldown. You never have multiple holy power procs. You can from Fires of Justice slightly there. You get the 15% chance for your next Holy Splendor to be one less. But that's the problem. The RNG is purely through talents. And some people might like that. That's a thing. But for me personally, I like a bit more variance in my spec. And Ret doesn't currently have that. You do have it through your talent options, correct. But those talent options, if they're not the best, and very rarely are RNG talents the best ones to choose from, I can find a spec being very boring for me personally in the long term. But then, you're playing a Warrior of the Light, so it's pretty bloody cool. But yeah, the damage feels good. Not even that, like, how much we're doing per second. I mean how the damage appears. Everything hits hard. Like, Judgment hits hard. Wait, Justice hits hard. You know, Crusader Strike hits like whatever, doesn't really matter. Templar's Verdict hits bloody hard. Then you pop your wings out. You go big dick. You go the big crits. No crits here. I guess that's one good thing about the Bending Wrath now, is that you only crit during your big cooldown more often, which looks nice on this big screen. But, yeah guys, that is the Retribution Paladin. I hope you enjoyed the video. I certainly enjoy playing Red Paladin, and yeah, we might see a bit more of this on the channel. I said yesterday, Enhance was, you know, a really great spec. This is great too, I still think Enhance is better. But this is something that's definitely up there, especially if you're someone like myself and you want to have a tank off spec like Brbteabreak Paladin. Ooh. But yeah guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time.